to our continuing series of virtual voices hosted by World Information Transfer and focusing on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Today, we are very pleased that Ambassador Sergeyev
Yes.
has come back to speak with us again. He is currently living in Ukraine. However, when we had our first webinar, Ambassador Sergeyev was our first speaker. So it's a great honor that he was able to make it today. Uh, Ambassador Sergeyev is a Ukrainian diplomat and scholar. From 92 to 16, he held senior positions in Ukraine Ministry for Foreign Affairs and served as ambassador to many countries and the United Nations. He has his Ph.D. from National Academy of Science of Ukraine. He has taught at the Kyiv State University, Yale University, and is a visiting lecturer at UNITAR and a research scholar at the John Jay College in New York. Dr. Sergeyev holds a diplomatic rank of Ambassador of Ukraine and first rank of public servant. He is also the member of the board of directors of World Information Transfer. And over to you, Ambassador Sergeyev.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you. I'm so proud to be a part of the team. You have so perfectly led for many years. Well, thank you for introducing me. So I'm going to share with you on the problem of environmental crimes of Russia in Ukraine in the light of international law. The Minister of Environmental Protection and Natural Resources of Ukraine daily records the facts of a huge environmental damage caused by Russia during the so-called special military operation declared by Moscow. A natural question from you could arrive. Is it possible to hold Moscow accountable for this? The short answer, it is difficult, but it is possible. Why it is difficult? International law, including international environmental law, is not absolutely perfect. It is not well codified. Discussions are still ongoing regarding the creation of International Environmental Court, inclusion in the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court as the fifth international crime, the crime of ecocide, together with genocide, crimes against humanity, crimes of war, crimes against humanity. This is difficult due to the fact that even important decisions of the United Nations General Assembly have only recommendatory and not an imperative nature. That means that Russia will ignore any decision. It is difficult through the United Nations Security Council to create a special tribunal and commission to compensate for environmental damage, as for example, in the case of Iraq-Kuwait war, when, if you remember, the Iraqi army blew up oil wells that burned for 8 months in a row. This is difficult because the permanent member of the UN Security Council, Russia, will block decision by its right of veto, even if this right was illegally obtained by Russia. Bringing Russia to justice through the International Criminal Court is also difficult due to the fact that although Russia is a signatory of the International Criminal Court statute, it does not recognize its jurisdiction when it is convenient for Moscow. There are other legal and organizational difficulties. However, it is possible and necessary to hold Russia accountable for the damage caused. For this, it is necessary to fully use all available legal options, all facts of ignoring and violating international law by Russia. This is important for demonstrating the already complete ugly portrait of the international offender, or rather a criminal, before the time comes to bring Russia to the court. I will start with a short list of basic documents of general political nature, which even if they are purely declarative, they impose on the signatories moral and political responsibility for the preservation of the environment. As the facts of Russia's damage to the natural environment in Ukraine show, Russia did not and does not intend to fulfill its obligations under these documents. This is the cynicism of the Kremlin's international behavior, and we need to point that out. These documents are Special Resolution of the United General Assembly of 1962, entitled Economic Development and Nature Protection, which emphasized that nature protection is the direct responsibility of the UN member states. Stockholm Declaration of 1972 on environmental protection also demands from the UN member states to fulfill their obligations and to protect environment. The resolution of the United Nations General Assembly of 1981, introduced, by the way, at the initiative of the former USSR. Russia is a follower of USSR, entitled On the Historical Responsibility of States to Preserve the Nature of the Earth for the Present and Future Generation. Sounds very nice, but Russia ignores even this resolution. In 1982, the United General Assembly approved the World Charter of Nature, which assigns to all the states that are part of the United Nations responsibility for the preservation of our planet and its natural resources. Agenda for the 21st century, adopted in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro by the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. Well, so that is the basic political documents which are being ignored by Russia. Let's move ahead. Environmental damage, we have to take this into account, caused by Russia as a result of its aggression. It's important to take into account the fact that environmental damage was caused and is being caused by Russian Federation during the ongoing military invasion of Muscovites into Ukraine. Therefore, it is necessary to consider such damage in the context of the international legal understanding of the nature of such an invasion. Russia's invasion into Ukraine, which started in 2014, has features of international armed conflict. Russian and foreign politicians close to them try to present it as a non-international but internal Ukrainian civil armed conflict, that it is a civil war in the east of Ukraine. In 2017, the Prosecutor's Office of the International Criminal Court recognized as an international armed conflict the confrontation between Ukrainian military and the armed forces of the Russian Federation since 2014. Although the Russian Federation has announced a special Russian military operation in Ukraine, according to international law, it is an international armed conflict caused by Russian aggression against Ukraine. The qualification of a situation under international law does not depend on qualification of a situation under national law. It means Russian law has no base, no platform well to push their vision of what's going on. Russia, having unleashed a war in Ukraine and caused enormous damage to the natural environment in many parts of Ukraine, is a violator of basic international legal documents that determine the behavior of states in the context of international military conflicts in relation to the environment. The facts of violation of main provisions of such international legal instruments should be used to legally accuse Russia. What are these documents? First of all, Convention on the Prohibition of military or any other use of means of influence on the natural environment, adopted by UN General Assembly on December 1976. This convention is the basic international legal act in the field of environmental protection during military conflicts. In 1977, 2 additional protocols to the 4 Geneva Conventions of 1949 were adopted. It is important to use the provision of the first protocol to accuse Russia, namely Article 54 of the first protocol, entitled "Protection of Objects Necessary for the Survival of Civilian Population." It says the following: it prohibits attacking or destroying, removing or rendering unusable objects necessary for the survival of the civil population, such as food stocks, food-producing agricultural areas, crops, livestock, facilities for supply of drinking water and supplies of the latter, as well as the irrigation facilities, specifically to prevent their use by civilian population as a means of subsistence, regardless of motive, whether to cause starvation among civilians, to force them to leave, or for any other reason. Very important document. And we observe what Russian militaries are doing, killing, destroying all these facilities important for survival of the civilian population. Article 52 of this protocol, entitled Protection of the Natural Environment, states that during hostilities, care must be taken to protect the natural environment from extensive, long-term, and serious damage. Such protection includes the prohibition of the use of methods of means of warfare which are intended to cause or may be expected to cause such damage to the natural environment and thereby to harm the health or survival of the population. Article 56, entitled Protection of Installations and Structures Containing Dangerous Forces. In fact, this article is about objects of critical infrastructure, dams, hydropower stations, and nuclear power plants, which should not become the object of an attack. Only detonation of by Russia occupants of the Kakhovska hydropower plant led to catastrophic consequences for people and the environment. The same article also states that the parties to the conflict should try to avoid placing any military facilities near the installations or structures specified in that article. Christian, you mentioned today what's going on in Zaporizhia. We are recording in this connection the capture of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant by the occupiers, contrary to the demands of the international legal documents. I just quoted some of them. Another document, a resolution entitled Protection of the Environment in Areas Affected by Armed Conflicts, adopted on May 27, 2016 by participants of the UN Environmental Assembly, fully violated by Russia. On December 6, 2017, in Nairobi, the UN Environmental Assembly adopted the resolution entitled Mitigating the Consequences and Limiting Environmental Pollution in Areas Affected by Armed Conflicts and Terrorism. What is also important, we are partners. Dr. Durbach is a long-term partner to United Nations Environmental Program. UNEP and Red Cross adopted in 2020 guidelines on environmental protection in armed conflict, rules and recommendations regarding the protection of the natural environment according to international humanitarian law. These guidelines are important for assessing Russia's environmental crimes. Rule 2 of these guidelines declares the prohibition of extensive long-term and serious damage to the natural environment. The use of methods of means of warfare that are intended to cause or may cause large-scale, long-term, and serious damage to the natural environmental is prohibited. This rule is reflects the provisions of additional Protocol First to the Geneva Conventions I quoted earlier. Rule 3 prohibits the destruction of the natural environment as a weapon. Russia uses destruction of natural environment as a weapon. By this, they are pushing people, pressing them to leave the areas. We should also use the fact that Russia used the chemical substance chlorpicrin against Ukrainian troops in violation of the 1992 Convention of the Prohibition of the Development, Production, Stockpiling, and Use of Chemical Weapons and on their destruction. Short conclusion. The Russian occupiers grossly violated all the mentioned and other instruments of international law concerning the environmental protection during the armed conflict. This conclusion raises a logical question. Is environmental damage committed by Russian Federation an international crime? How does it qualify under international law? First, the military invasion of Russian Federation of Ukraine is blatant and gross violation of the fundamental principles of international law and various international agreements, such as the Helsinki Final Act, the Paris Charter for a New Europe, the Budapest Memorandum, and especially the United Nations Charter, Article 2 of which declares that all members of the United Nations shall abide by their international relations from the threat or use of force, both against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state, and in any other way incompatible with the purposes of the United Nations. Violating the fundamental principles of international law, Russia has committed a number of international crimes by damaging the ecological environment of Ukraine. They are environmental damage perpetrated by Russian aggression, which caused physical and psychological suffering to the population of the affected territories. Their forced resettlement is a crime against humanity in accordance with Article 7, entitled Crimes Against Humanity of the Statute of the International Criminal Court, to which Russia is a signatory. Clause IV of Article 8, entitled War Crimes of the same statute of the International Criminal Court, includes the following provision as war crimes: long-term and serious damage to the natural environment, which will be clearly excessive in relation to the expected concrete and direct overall military advantage. So it is a war crime. Large-scale loss, damage, and destruction of ecosystems in certain territories of Ukraine as a result of Russian aggression, which makes it impossible or severely limits their use by residents of these territories, is a crime of ecocide. This type of crime, although not recorded in the statute of the International Criminal Court, but it is recognition by international legal community, has a good perspective. In international humanitarian law, the basis of all crimes committed as a result of international armed conflict is the crime of aggression. If aggression had not occurred, crimes against humanity, genocide, ecocide, war crimes would not have been committed. Article 8 bis, entitled Crime of Aggression of the International Criminal Court, defines that crime of aggression means the planning, perpetration, preparation, initiation, or execution of an act by a person who has the ability to actually control or direct the political or military actions of the state. Aggression, which by its nature, seriousness, and scale is a clear violation of the Charter of the United Nations. I am sure that I will not be mistaken when I state that the environmental crimes committed by Russia in Ukraine are not only a physical result of aggression, but it is also a crime of aggression in accordance with the spirit and letter of the Resolution 3314 of the United Nations General Assembly of 1974 on the definition of aggression. In recent years, the United General Assembly has adopted a number of resolutions accusing Russia of the crime of aggression. Resolution of UN General Assembly dated March 2, 2022, entitled Aggression Against Ukraine. Resolution dated March 24, 2022, entitled Humanitarian Consequences of Aggression Against Ukraine. Resolution of November 15, 2024, under the title Assistance in the Implementation of Legal Protection and Provision of Compensation for Damage in Connection with Aggression Against Ukraine. Resolution of UN General Assembly, Principles of the Charter of the United Nations underlining the achievement of comprehensive, just, and durable peace in Ukraine. Well, the next question comes. How to hold Russia accountable for the damage caused? Experts are convinced that crimes against the environment committed by Russia and Ukraine should be considered in the context of crimes of aggression, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. That is, those international crimes for which the corresponding international legal instrument has already been created. The register of crimes against the environment should be a separate object of the evidence based in the process of holding Russia accountable for crimes of aggression, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. At the same time, the effects of environmental crimes, including the crime of ecocide committed by Russia in Ukraine, should occupy their niche and become Ukraine's contribution to the efforts of those states that have enshrined the concept of the crime of ecocide in their criminal codes. There are 13 countries now, and international non-governmental organizations with the aim of including the crime of ecocide in the list of international crimes, in the statute of the International Criminal Court, and promoting at the United Nations level the issue of establishing the United Nations Environmental Council and the International Environmental Court. Ukraine is considering various international mechanisms to ensure proper investigation and prosecution of Russian criminals, in particular for committing the crime of aggression against Ukraine, war crimes, crimes against humanity, environmental crimes. On March 4, 2022, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba, made a statement on the creation of a special tribunal to punish the crime of aggression against Ukraine. It is important to understand that such a special tribunal for the leaders of Russia should concern the crime of aggression and not war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. That is, everything derived from aggression. The latter is already the prerogative of the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Let's consider both options. In September 2022, the President of Ukraine issued a decree. On the basis of this decree, a working group was created to study the issue of introducing a special international tribunal for the crime of aggression against Ukraine. Experts offer 4 possible options for creating a special tribunal that Ukraine can use. On the basis of the resolution of the UN General Assembly, which calls on either the UN Secretary General to conclude an agreement between the United Nations and Ukraine, or regional organization, for example, the European Union and or the Council of Europe and Ukraine, to conclude an agreement on the establishment of the tribunal. Or the second option, by concluding, I like it, an agreement between Ukraine and the European Union in the absence of the United Nations General Assembly resolution, or by concluding a multilateral agreement between Ukraine and other states, multilateral model, how it was created after the Second World War, the Nuremberg Tribunal. So when several states gathered and created this tribunal, and the perpetrators were brought to justice. And of course, there is an option to have national with international involvement Ukrainian court. The possibility of creating a tribunal based on the resolution of the UN Security Council is unlikely because Russia, as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, has the right of veto. We, let me jump a bit ahead. What the role International Criminal Court could play? As I told earlier, that Russia is a signatory of the statute of the court, but they are taking decision not to recognize the jurisdiction of the court when it is convenient for Russia. But International Criminal Court recognizes environmental damage as a war crime and thereby provides criminal liability for certain actions related to environmental damage during armed conflict. Secondly, the statute of the International Criminal Court provides punishment for crimes against humanity. The damage caused by the occupiers to the ecological environment, which caused physical and mental suffering of a large group of population in different regions of Ukraine, is a crime against humanity. Thirdly, the war crimes and crimes against humanity committed by Russia as a result of environmental damage were caused by Russian aggressions in Ukraine. Thus, those guilty of aggression that led to the other crimes should be prosecuted in accordance with provision of Article 8 bis of the International Criminal Court. There is every reason to believe that the International Criminal Court would prosecute Moscow criminals of various calibers for internationally committing crimes against the environment as part of the war crimes and crimes against humanity. The precedent was created for this when, on March 17, 2023, the judges of International Criminal Court issued warrants for the arrest of two Russians, Putin and Lvova Belova, for committing war crimes in Ukraine in the form of illegal deportation and transfer of the population, including children, from the occupied territory of Ukraine, at least since February 24 in 2022. On March 2, 2022, prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, decided to start a full-fledged investigation of the situation in Ukraine at the request of 39 countries to investigate crimes against humanity and war crimes committed during international armed conflict in Ukraine. The prosecutor Karim Khan also announced the creation of a permanent office of the court in Ukraine. In May 2023, a group of 42 investigators, experts, and criminal court employees visited Ukraine. According to the words of Prosecutor General of Ukraine, Andrei Kostin, Ukraine is for the first time in history investigating crimes against the environment as a war crimes. All that what I said today for a limited time was probably something was not said. I will send the full text of my statement to you to share with the attendance of today's meeting or others. It means what has been said gives the confidence that Moscow criminals will be brought to justice sooner or later, because there is no statute of limitation for war crimes and crimes against humanity. Thank you very much for your attention.
Ambassador Sergeyev, thank you very, very much for very pertinent facts about the crimes against humanity, particularly against Ukraine, for more than 100 years. And we will now move over to our moderator, Susie Halleck, who will ask you the questions that have come in. Susie.
Thank you, Ambassador Sergeyev, for a very important presentation. The first question from the audience is, in your opinion, how did the war in Ukraine affect the role of diplomacy in the modern world?
Yes, it is shaping. It is shaping diplomacy, because what we are facing now, the beginning of the formation of the new world order. The world after the war in Ukraine will not be the same. It is sure. The coalitions of the states in support of Ukraine, they are thinking about the new format, the new mechanism, how to govern the world around, to make it secure, safe, based on the respect of the rules. That's why when we observe the huge support of Ukraine by the major countries, major players, we do understand that those who would like to support Ukraine, but they are still under the pressure of Russian diplomacy. So this is the competition now with the democratic world and all the autocratic few players who are trying to manage the rest of the world not to support Ukraine. So this is exactly the competition for the building the new world order, to build our new future.
How do you think the development of technologies such as AI and social networks will affect international relations in the future?
Artificial intelligence now on the agenda of many international institutions and even on the national level. So I followed the discussions in the United Kingdom. They took the lead in that. So the Secretary General, Teresh, he named two major challenges to the world now: climate change and artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has at least two sides. It gives excellent opportunities for the future in different spheres: medicine, economy, science, business, and so on. At the same time, artificial intelligence has a lot of risks when it is manipulated or managed in the hands of autocratic regimes, interfering in the life of their citizens, or using artificial intelligence for creation of autonomous weapons, mass destruction. This is very dangerous. The global diplomacy understands that, and we going to do a document which is being cooked now, will be discussed, and there is a hope that it will be supported during the summit on the Global Compact in September this year, during the General Assembly high-level meeting. This Global Digital Compact has a separate article on the artificial intelligence, appealing to the nations, those who have the possibility to develop the artificial intelligence, to implement it. The address is how to regulate the management of the artificial intelligence. So it will be a very interesting discussion this September.
Very interesting. And what environmental initiatives have been implemented to support the affected regions in Ukraine that you're aware of?
Now, Ukraine partners are collecting the effects of damages together with our Ministry of Environment and Protection of Nature. So they have already collected more than 2,500 evidences which are being treated as crimes. So all these will be used in the package of accusation of Russia aggression in Ukraine as a part of evidences of the war crimes. War crimes also include the damages to the environment, which may affect the population. As a part of the accusation of Russia, crimes against humanity, crimes of aggression. So all these facts are being collected by Ukrainian experts with the help of the foreign experts. It's important that we have huge support from the legal institutions of European countries, mostly from France, from Poland, from Germany, Netherlands. Experts from the International Criminal Court, they are coming, helping us to collect them. So environmental crimes will be on the table of the accusation of Russian Federation sooner or later.
How is biodiversity changing in areas where hostilities or war crimes are taking place?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, because when they're destroying the huge areas of forests, they are destroying the biodiversity, the rivers, the waters, the dumps and hydropower stations. Unfortunately, the damages the biodiversity, the water biodiversity. We observe the birds are migrating to Ukraine during this period. They are leaving the traditional places of our deployment. The bombing of the Kakhovska hydropower plant caused enormous, huge damage to big territories. Well, so still we are trying to cope with that. Unfortunately, yes, biodiversity is under danger.
Are endangered species and rare species of animals and plants more at risk than others?
I don't have a list of the particular type of animals, but so I guess that some of those who were in the ecological parks and they were breeding there in Kherson, for example, the Kherson ecological park. So many of them they were killed or they left the zone. Yeah.
What are the environmental consequences of the destruction of the energy infrastructure?
The attacks against the critical infrastructure, including the energy infrastructure, this is a crime because particularly when it happens before the winter season, but not only. As our officials stated that half of our energy generating facilities were destroyed. Of course, it's created a lot of the problems for the people, for the population. How to keep refrigerators, how to keep their business. So this is what brought the both suffering, psychological, physical suffering, and business and living problems to the people. Yeah.
The following question is: how does military action affect the state and quality of agricultural areas, in turn impacting produce and quality and access to food?
Yeah, they are destroying harvest, and they are stealing harvest. So we have detected many facts when Russian business, Russian military, they are stealing harvest and selling it to abroad to their partners, so on. They are trying to target the transportation of our grain via the sea or by the land, so creating the serious challenges in the Black Sea. There are several facts when they attacked internationally the cargo under the international flags, the ships under international flags in the Black Sea. They are bombing the livestock facilities in certain regions, agricultural fields. They have the purpose in doing that because the agricultural trade for Ukraine was one of the biggest revenue for our budget. And at the same time, they are creating problems not only for Ukraine, but those who are waiting this grain. The world in a problem, food problem.
In your opinion, how long or what will it take to restore the Ukrainian natural environment after the end of the war?
It's difficult to judge because the damage is very serious and vast. We are currently discussing with our partners because without their assistance, technical, financial, it would be very difficult to revive our electricity generating facilities. This is what we are doing now. Of course, there are the aftermath plans, what to do with all the destroyed electricity facilities in different regions. But it is aftermath. Now it's important to create what is possible quickly, not to leave the problem for the winter season, and not to leave the problem generally because the business is suffering.
Is the diplomatic community bringing Russia to criminal responsibility for the damage caused against humanity in Ukraine?
39 countries. They were the beginners. They addressed the International Criminal Court judges to start investigation of the crimes of war crimes, crimes of aggression, and crimes against humanity. So the process was launched, and it will go on, and so the criminals will be at the court.
Thank you. And that relates to the following question from the audience, which is how have international bodies such as the UN, International Court of Justice, responded to Russia's environmental actions? So it seems like, based on your answer, they have.
Well, International Court of Justice, it's a universal body. It's a part of the United Nations Charter. Unfortunately, it is a universal body, but they do not have the instruments how to stop the problem, how to stop the crime, how to bring the perpetrators to justice. What they can do just to make some judgment, but not to bring to prison or to arrest. At the beginning of Ukraine addressed the court, but the decision of the court was good, timely, but the Russian Federation ignored it because this appeal of International Court of Justice was just demanding to Russia to move all the troops from Ukraine. But it was just an appeal. The only body in the United Nations system, UN Security Council, is in a position, according to their functions, well, to introduce sanctions, but how to introduce sanctions when Russia inside and could veto any resolution on that issue. So the country created tribunal against Russia because Russia is inside. The General Assembly, this is the main body, it's the parliament. But unfortunately, the composition of United Nations was made after the Second World War in that way that the function of General Assembly just produce recommendations. They are important because they are helpful to create some kind of understanding and unanimity, some kind of the partnership, the cooperation with those who are in need, including Ukraine. In 2014, when the war started, so we managed to got the overwhelming support to have the resolution territorial integrity of Ukraine. Only 11 countries were against that, headed by Russia. The rest supported us. So that's why platform of General Assembly is important to create the coalition of states and their understanding the necessity to change something in that world, where some of the countries, the perpetrators of the international law, they're ignoring the rules, ignoring everything, making United Nations system weak, not capable to face the challenges of 21st century. Well, that's why all this discussion in the General Assembly around the resolutions about Ukrainian issue helpful for the future. It's not helpful for immediate solution, immediate stop the war and aggression, immediate bringing the perpetrator to justice. But it is important, well, to create the global understanding and the global protest, which is being formed.
Thank you. And do you think there's room for international bodies, the UN, International Court of Justice, to do more in the immediate term?
International Criminal Justice, unfortunately, is not an international body. It is a body of 193 states, which is very important. But it could be international body, could be based on universal jurisdiction. When the countries who are respecting the international law would, of course, they will keep regarding International Criminal Court as complementary. But if it is even complementary, they are to base their national politics on the principle of international jurisdiction. It means either judge yourself or extradite somebody, the perpetrators to be judged by others, including International Criminal Court. This is a principle of international universal jurisdiction. Audedere audedicare. Either treat yourself or extradite. It could be, and discussions are going on around that. Not easy, but still it could be. As to the United Nations, well, it's a long-going process since long time. The changes in the principles of UN bodies. First of all, the United Nations Security Council, with its veto power, how to modernize it, how to bring the new players, what to do with the veto power, to bring more power to the General Assembly. All these are on the table of the working groups in the United Nations. But still, we have decades behind that, and still we see that the wars are going on around the world, the conflicts are everywhere, different kind, the challenges, insecurity, injustice is everywhere, but there is a hope. We are living with the hope. With the hope, most probably all these discussions around the aggression in Ukraine, war in Ukraine, creating different coalitions. In a few days, on 15th and 16th of June, the big forum will take place in Geneva around the peace formula of Ukraine. Well, and so it's getting more and more support by the respective countries and so on. Who knows? Most probably this forum will be the basic for the new international organization. Who knows? But they are debating the Ukrainian vision of the peace formula. Well, could be the basic for the new principles. They are not new, by the way. This formula is based on the provisions of United Nations Charter. That's why it's universal in its nature. Well, so we hope that altogether, with the democratic world, we will gain not by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. What we are doing is right not only for us, but for every nation. Thank you.
In your opinion, what is the future of international relations and what role will Ukraine play?
Well, so Ukraine is playing the role now as a serious subject of international relations. Both we are stopping the second biggest army in the world, nation which 10 times smaller than Russia, with smaller army, so on. We are stopping them, and doing that, we are we are protecting the rest of the Europe from the danger of Russia further aggression. They have far-going plans. They are threatening now the world by their nuclear armaments. So that's why this is the role we are playing. The next, what we are doing, we are thinking not only about the peace for ourselves, but for the sustainable peace, durable peace for the rest of the world. Well, based on serious principles which are shared by every normal nation. So that's why we are bringing to the international diplomacy the ideas how we can build the new international order on what principles, and why it happened that the practically the same principles were destroyed. What happened? So that's why we are raising different issues in the United Nations General Assembly, in other institutions, Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe. Well, so this is the role we are playing. We can't live in a future without international diplomacy. We can't, but we should help the international diplomacy well to protect the values they signed under, including United Nations Charter or any other document. The biggest problem for the implementation of what was adopted years and years ago is compliance gaps. Not all the members of the United Nations community, they thoroughly perform the obligations under all these agreements.
Do you think that new innovations will emerge out of this crisis against humanity and the environment in Ukraine? Do you see Ukraine extensively deploying renewable energy technologies?
I think that, first of all, this is the biggest crisis after the Second World War, the biggest war in Europe. All the previous wars, they brought to some kind of the new world order. Starting from the end of the 30 years old in Europe, it brought the Westphalian world order, which recognized the right of the states to sovereignty and independence. Then, after the Napoleonic invasion, so the Paris Agreement, Vienna Agreement, they created new world order with the principles of the coalitions and combinations. After the First World War, the new agreement arrived, new world order led by the League of Nations, with the principles led there. So all these three, they did not brought to sustainable peace for centuries and centuries, but they did what they did, and the United Nations accumulated all the positives from the predecessors to create the UN Charter and other principles. Now we observe that the United Nations is not in the position to manage the global issues in the 21st century. This war of Russia in Ukraine, against Ukraine, the war in Europe against the democratic world, in my opinion, should bring to changes. We will not live in the with the principles of the past, which brought to this new war. So the new drafted, and I guess that most probably the first step to that will be the summit in Geneva this weekend.
What potential legal consequences could Russia face under international law for its environmental crimes in Ukraine?
So as I said, Russia committed many crimes, and so the environmental crimes, they are the parts of other crimes which are on the list of international legal instruments, and these instruments, including the Rome Statute of International Criminal Court, could be used. The crime of war crimes. Environmental damages is there. The crimes against humanity are there because, well, the damages to the physical nature of the people. Well, all these are already exist, and these instruments should be used first, not to wait until we have the International Convention of the Ecocide, or to have ecocide as a part of the international crime is in the Rome Statute. These, at least these three, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes of aggression, they should be used well to bring Russia to justice. And just this principle, just this kind of work is going on.
Looking back on your career, what are you most proud of? What was most memorable? And what do you wish you had done differently?
Well, you know, I'm perfectionist. I don't like whatever I did. I would now from this position, well, coming back, I'm not ashamed of what I did, but I could do something different in different places where I posted.
And lastly, to close out, what advice do you have for students on the line who are interested in working in international relations?
So as far as we were discussing today, the Russian aggression, Russian war against Ukraine, including the different crimes they are committing in Ukraine. So for them, it's interesting, well, to follow how the new international order is being created now. What are the statements and positions of different players? Are they going from the isolationism to the global partnership, or vice versa? So this is important to observe in many countries. The tendency is that we do understand that some of the countries, they are moving out from their isolationism and trying to be helpful for others. This is very important. The international law is a dynamic material, so it is changing, and you may find your interest in any part of the international law to invest intellectually what could be done in the sphere of new technologies, how to regulate artificial intelligence, how to regulate the behavior in bionics as well, how to deal with the biological weaponry. Despite the convention, still there is no institutions to monitor, to verify what's going on, and to protect ourselves and humanity, because the usage of chemical weaponry has institution and has the verification mechanism, biological not. So that's why there are so many small and big issues in international policy where everybody could find himself or herself, either it's about medicine, or it is about the military, or it is about business. We are approaching the serious challenge with the cryptocurrency, which is also challenging the international order. And look carefully at United Nations agenda on new economic order. It's interesting. It's very interesting. So I can continue, but I don't know who is your audience well, but.
Thank you so much. I'll turn back to Dr. Durbach to close out.
Thank you very much, Susie, for moderating. And thank you very, very much for being with us again. And your continuing work in teaching the world, basically, the imperialistic destruction of Ukraine by Russia. I mean, this is, it is such a shame that the world cannot seem to understand that if we want a functioning world, we need to give people the rights and the privilege to serve their own people and not go and destroy others. And and that is particularly so very pertinent when somebody is studying the history of Ukraine. And so we hope that you will be able to continue work in teaching everyone what's going on. And we are most grateful that you were able to come with us again in sharing your thoughts and your perspective of what is going on. We wish you also a very, very healthy life and a lot of energy so that you what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me again. Well,
Ambassador, we will publish your entire presentation in the World Ecology Report. Thank you very much. I'm most grateful for your being with us and sharing your life and your work and your continued support of bringing democracy to Ukraine. My father, and his colleagues started it.
Yeah, and you're continuing to do that. Slava Ukraini!
Goodbye and take good care of yourself.